Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The 0 people who are actually here. I shall put a thing on the Instagram. I had a thing ready to go on Instagram. So.
Oh, I forgot about Instagram. Sorry, I forgot. I could have done that.
How dare you? Are you not dedicated to this?
I know. I retweeted on Twitter, so yeah. It's always helpful as well when YouTube sends that notification to be like, this person is now live, and it's like, oh yes.
Straight there. So tonight, we are talking about our December pick for the I Should Have Read That book club, which Shannon has. Oh, I love that naked hair.
I have to take it off because it's just so gorgeous underneath.
Which I do not have because I left it at home in Huddersfield. But it is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Woo! Oh, I think Anna has the beautiful, like the white one, which I didn't get because I thought to myself, oh, loads of, there'll be copies there for a while, thinking of things like The Song of Achilles, and it is not there. And if you want to buy it, it's like £50-60 on eBay. So that's not happening.
Oh, I know, because I thought would it be extortionate to get another hardback of it? But then
this is what
they've taken.
I do have a copy, so I don't need a special one. But then when I bought my special edition of Song of Achilles, I was like, well, maybe I could, because I'd seen the images. They have illustrations in there, and I thought, oh, that's pretty. But no, it was not to be. Maybe somebody will send it to a charity shop in a couple of years, and the charity
then
shop
you'll
know what they have, and I'll be like, anyway, yes. So apologies that we are doing it on the 11th of January. We are currently in the middle of actually doing our January book, reading that, which I'll mention at the end. But yes, just a combination of, I think, after Christmas, going back to work. But it is lovely to be chatting about it, because I know we're finding out about Karis. We're very eager to find out what Karis thinks about it. But me and Shannon have just been messaging.
Loved it.
Because I'd already read it, so it's just that anticipation of, what does Shannon and Karis think about it? What if they don't like this book that is my favourite book that I've read this year? So when you were saying that you loved it, I was like, So, Shannon, what did you think about LaRue?
I just fell in love with it from the second I picked it up. The writing just got me back into reading. I felt like I wasn't around Christmas and before then. I've been trudging through the books. And then, do you know when you haven't read a really well written book, or one of the books that was written for you? It's hard to explain, because well written books, depending on who you are, it can be something different. I just started reading it and I was like, this is the kind of writing I really, really like. And then when I realized what was going to sort of not happen, but the format of it, and that it flashes backwards and forwards and between times, and that you learn so much about how Addie deals with what is happening to her. I was like, I'm here, and I could have devoured it, but I'm glad I didn't, because at the same time I also didn't want to finish it, because I didn't want to have no more left to read. Yes, and it was on my best books of 2020. What year was it? Last year? Thank you. 2021 list. Because so good.
I put up mine this evening, and it was.
I saw that.
It was my number one fiction. To be fair, there were only 3 fiction on my best of.
I saw the thumbnail, and I was going to message you because I saw the Radium Girls and Addie LaRue, so I was going to be like,
it's like, Shannon will approve.
Yes.
But yeah, because I this was my second time reading it through. Read it back in February, and one of the reasons that I'd wanted to read it for the book club was, one, I know it's a book that everybody says that they want to get to. It's like a big hype book this year, last year. But I just wanted to confirm that it was as good as it was the first time. And it was. And I got like different things out of it this time as well, which is why I think rereading is very, very important. And why I'm quite glad that we do incorporate rereading into our little book club. So yeah, I think when I originally, because I'd heard about it like back in 2020 when it first came out, and I was kind of dodging it because you know, some hyped books are just everywhere, and you think, is it really that good? I knew V. Schwab had done like more fantasy stuff, and it was stuff that I kind of just kind of thought, oh, that's not really my kind of thing. But then I remember watching Jennifer Brooks. She did a video where, I don't know if it was her best books of the year or if it was just like a wrap up, but she'd spoken about it and how much she loved it. And Jennifer has a lot of she's into a lot of the same kind of stuff that I'm into. So like a lot of historical fiction, history, nonfiction, classics, that kind of thing. And she loved it. So I was like, oh. And when I messaged her about it, because she was describing what the plot was, and I said, oh, that sounds really interesting. You're actually kind of swaying me to reading it. And she described it as like being our mutual brand of weird is in this book.
Ooh.
There's a lot of things that click for both of us that are in this book, with like the comments on with like the historical setting and like this immortality deal with the devil, and talking about art and literature and how to explore art in the world and that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Initially, I think I thought it started earlier than it does. I didn't realize it was starting in the 18th century, because for whatever reason, from what she'd said, I thought it was like starting in the Renaissance or something, so a couple of centuries before. But no, I had a great time.
I know, see, that's very similar to what swayed me. So when it first came out, I remember just seeing it everywhere, and people had arcs of it, and I was like, why is everyone like obsessed with this book? And I didn't even know the synopsis, and then I saw how big it was, and I was like, no. Especially because I know as well V. Schwab is a big series person, and that puts me off sometimes. I'm just a bit like, and then I read somewhere that supposedly she said that this is the book she's basically been writing her entire life, or she's had the concept for it her entire life. And when it came out, she was like, I can't believe it's out in people's hands, which I now understand, because the ending, it all just like, so good.
I do kind of love it when that is a plot point in a book.
Yeah.
Is somebody bringing out a book that is titled the exact same as the title of this book. Love it.
Amazing.
Can be cheesy, but I love it.
Yeah, but again, the hype kind of put me off. And then it was when Victoria, from what Victoria read, when she read it and loved it, then I was like, I need to read it at some point. Because after that, I knew that I was probably going to enjoy it. And we are correct.
I'm really sorry. Can you hear?
A little bit. No.
Okay, so for anybody who is not in our behind the scenes, but my housemates are watching Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and it's just gotten to the bit where the children are just randomly screaming because they can hear Voldemort in their head. It's such a random thing for them to have done. Not my housemates, for them to have put into the film. And I can just hear it. It's making me laugh. Yeah. It's not Addie LaRue. Okay, back to thing. So yes, we do have some questions, but also kind of discussion points.
I love that idea for this book.
Honestly, I got to about 11 o'clock last night. Remembered I didn't have questions. I wasn't really sure about what kind of questions. I was trying to do them as I went along, and just failed spectacularly. Do you have a couple that are like adapted from ones that we've done before? So instead of like a general favorite characters one, because I don't know, I feel like it would be kind of redundant with this book to have like talk about a general favorite character, because you basically have 3 people.
Yeah.
You have 3 who you're focused on, and other people exist, but they're not really as developed, and you're not spending as much time with them just because of what the book is about.
Yeah.
It's very much internal in Addie's point of view and the two main men in her life. But I did want to ask if you had any minor characters that you enjoyed or felt attached to.
Yes, I loved, so very early on, I think one of the reasons why I realized I was going to love it is because of Addie's relationship with her father. Because it reminded me of the book.
Her grandmother.
No, it reminded me of The Book Thief.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I got that same vibes, like from the father kind of aspect.
Like Hans? Or?
Like, yes, yeah. I forgot his name.
Hans.
I know.
He is my favourite in The Book Thief.
I know, he's so lovely. And then the other person whose name I've completely forgotten is the one that warns her all the time about not to make deals after dark.
Is that not
What's
her
name? No, Estelle?
Yeah, that's her grandmother. Yeah.
Estelle is her grandmother?
I think so. I thought she was.
I thought she was just like an old woman that lived in the village.
I thought she was her grandmother. But
either way, loved her.
Yay. No, we do. I do like Estelle. I cannot remember for the life of me the character's name, but it's is he called Rene? Or who she meets in the cafe, and he recognizes her as a woman when she's dressed as a man, and they have like a lovely conversation, and it's her like first time with a man that's actually like with feelings, and somebody actually making her feel special. And I was like, oh, he's lovely, he's nice, and he's only in it for a chapter or so. I think, but I enjoyed him. I think because he was just a bit of a fanboy about Voltaire, which I thought was quite endearing.
Yeah, no, I really liked him, and it was so sad. Is he the same one that obviously she ends up like, you know, they go back together and everything? And like you said, it's the first time she has that kind of relationship with someone where she actually likes the person. And then what happens in the morning is so sad.
I wanted to throw that in there because if we did just general favorite person and end up just gushing a little bit about how much I enjoy Luke as a character and Henry. I like both of her guys.
I'm sorry, Henry, I don't really care. He's just sort of, you know, there, but then at the same time, like towards the end, I was like crying my eyes out because I was just like, oh. I think because obviously these are like spoilery discussions because I know it's a bit weird because I'm like, do I mention this? Do I not mention this for anyone?
I just go straight into it and I'm like, I'm assuming you've already.
I don't think Addie loved him like she loved other people. She seemed, even like the humans that did forget her, so the one that plays guitar or piano, I forgot his name. I think, and then when she hears the song and then like runs out, I think she really loved him. But with Henry, it was more the fact that he remembered her. I think it was more that she was in love with that aspect of it rather than him as a person.
Because I have a term with this, because I know she does make a comment. Is it just before or just after she's found out about his deal? And she says, I love you. And in the narrative, it says, and I'm hoping that it's true, or I wish that it could be true, something like that. So I always think of that. But also, I think what this book is really good at kind of highlighting is like the kind of love where it's familiarity and feeling safe with somebody, as opposed to lust or just really fancying just generally really fancying somebody and being excited by them in that way. That there's like this comfort in the familiarity and knowing that somebody's there for you, and like which do you value more? And I think he provides her that safety.
Yeah.
And like which has more longevity than maybe what she has with Luke, where he could get bored of her after a while. Yeah. No. And it's just too intense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this explosion of a thing rather than like a gentle simmer.
But that's what I did love though as well, and I thought like V. Schwab does it so well, is with the different relationships Addie does have throughout the book, it's not the same, but you can tell that she is connected and like loves each person, but in a different way, and I really enjoyed that.
Like I believed all of the each time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
but yes, like for a different reason.
Yeah.
Which happens as well. Good to have that rather than having one, like, especially like love triangles. You very easily can get to a point where you're like, well, clearly the author wants us to be into this person, and this person is just an obstacle who has no personality.
Yeah.
I am thinking about the Hunger Games and Gale. So
sorry
to the Gale fans.
But no, it took me as well. It took me so long to realize. I don't know what book it was. I think there must have been a book that I've read in the past where I fell for the wrong person, basically. So do you know, like with the love triangles, and you're like, it's this one, and then they end up being with someone else, and it's just like, no. I think it might have been Shadow and Bone and the Darkling, and that's why now I hope, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, no, not until there is facts and there is proof on the page that this is where this is going. So obviously,
until I have turned that last page, I will not believe
it. So in the back of my mind, I was like, I really want this to be a thing. I really, really, really want this to be a thing. But I think I might be imagining it because that's the kind of like relationship I am obsessed with and the kind of character I'm obsessed with. So like, this is not what's happening here. And then when it was happening, I was like, I'm so happy.
This is the thing. I was happy either way. I think I was genuinely very, very sad. Sad for Addie and Henry to not be able to have this very like gentle, stable life that they wanted. But also, I think Luke is depicted as a very charming character that I think if you weren't sucked in by him, then she wouldn't have done her job as a writer.
Yeah.
And I could completely understand why he was charming and why you would be taken in by him. So, but also terrified of him at the same time. Yeah.
But I also love what V. Schwab did in terms of like making Addie like the exact balance of him. Like even right from the beginning where she's kind of like, no, you have destroyed my life. So I'm going to prove to you that, you know, I can be stronger than what you think I am. And just keep going and keep going and keep going. And then it just like, they balance each other out. And it's just so amazing. Right to the very last page as well. So
this actually touches on one of the points that I wanted to bring up was, are Luke and Henry meant to be basically different sides of the same coin, or are they separate characters to you? So the main way is that he does have like they both have like the dark curly hair, and in that moment I'm just there like, I completely understand you, Addie, because that is my type as well. I understand. Is it real or is it part of his curse? This was something I did wonder, because the part of Henry's curse, well, his curse is that he becomes whatever the other person wants. And I was like, does that extend physically to him as well? That he looks so much like Luke, but not quite? Or is it just a coincidence? Or was Luke like a master chess player and had kind of planned, okay, this boy who looks exactly like me, this is what he wants, I'm going to give him what he wants. And oh, look, he's in New York at the exact same time as Addie.
That's literally just blown my mind.
The questions that I had was like, was it deliberate, or was Luke just kind of bluffing and it just happened this way? I don't know.
No, that makes perfect sense, because I did sometimes kind of think with Henry, like looking like Luke, I did kind of think like, oh, it was just V. Schwab just doing it just for the sake of it. But now that you mention, obviously his curse, or the deal he made, is about you are what other people like see or want, because obviously with some women they see a son, and like, you know, it's not always just women or men being in love with him, it's like, or, you know, being attracted to him, it's whatever they want to see. So that makes so much sense.
Which I kind of remembered that aspect of the curse, because the first time that I read it, I completely missed that was what the curse was. I thought it was literally just he will be loved by everybody. And so the fact that Addie was a loophole, he was a loophole to Addie, didn't really make sense in my head. I kind of like glazed over it, and I thought it was just, oh well, maybe it's just that they're both cursed people, and therefore the curse is just kind of. But in the book, when I read it again, it was like, oh no, what she wanted, that the thing that she wanted desperately was for somebody to remember her. So therefore, he became that for her.
What is happening to my brain?
And that didn't make sense until I read it this time around.
Okay, it's an even better book than I thought it was then.
It's just going click, click, click.
It's just like,
oh, you've frozen on me.
Like what you initially said.
You've frozen on me like this.
Are they like two sides of one coin? You could definitely see that Henry is like, oh no.
Are you frozen on? Oh, you're moving again.
Yeah, I was like,
you were frozen on this.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yes. No, I definitely think that they are kind of like, you could say one is the devil and one is like, so do you know the little shoulder people?
Yes, so Henry from Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah. So I watched that not that long ago. Yeah, so that's what I kind of did see them as, you know, like very, very similar, but one like being the good version and one being the bad, which makes sense as to why Addie was drawn to Henry as well, not just physically.
Which then also blows holes in the Addie and Luke thing, because if he was looking exactly like him, because that's what she wanted. Okay, fine. Yeah. No, I do like all of the parallel. You've frozen again on me.
I was just very still, I think. No?
Oh, one sec. I'm gonna pop you out and then pop you back in, if I can do that.
Am I? Yes? No?
Oh, I can't see you. Oh. How did this happen? How could this happen to me?
Let me.
Oh dear. Ugh. I can't even hear you now. Oh dear. I ruined everything. Oh! I see you, but I can't hear you. I feel like a pensioner on Zoom for the first time. Oh.
Is that working?
Yes.
Okay.
I did feel like my granddad when he had to do Zoom for the first time, but I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. I apologise.
Where were we? Addie and Luke. Have we exhausted Addie, Luke, and Henry? Do you think?
Until we get into nitty gritty, possibly.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny, I write these questions and then I don't have an answer for them myself, so I'll probably have to have a think. But was there a scene or a chapter that stood out to you?
There was. Oh, I have to mention this one just because it was the moment that I realized I love Addie. I love her. Is the bit where she goes into the stable. This is like quite early on with her curse, and she's learning how to like steal things and how to and she thinks she is like the bee's knees, and I love it because she's like, I'm going to go into this stable and I'm going to pretend like this horse is mine, and you just know it's going to go wrong. And then the guy is like, oh, is that right, like that this horse belongs to your father, because actually that's my horse. And then it's when she turns around, she's like, can I pick again? And I was like, yes.
No, I remember you putting that in the chat. Like, yes.
Yeah. And from then on, I was like, yes, I'm like with you 100%.
That's the thing, because this book could be so like just a bit dark and humorless, but there's little things like that are peppered in that just kind of don't take you out of it. They just endear you to the character, to Addie. And she is just funny and like has that wit about her.
Although I did also, like, while we're just on it, I'm just going to quickly mention it. No, we're gonna. It's on the discussion point. I'll save it. Yes, never mind.
I'm sure I had a particular scene or chapter, and now I'm just thinking about like lots of different things within the book. It'll come to me. Something will come to me. Just it's all these different meetings. I think mainly it is the meetings with Luke that stick in my head. Every time he pops up and he's just like, "Hey there," he's like, "I hate you." Very fun.
That's reminded me of the one where she knows it's the anniversary of like her making the deal, so she gets really dressed up and fancy and is basically going to be like, look how far I've come, look what I know, what I can do now, and he doesn't turn up.
Man,
I know.
There is one where she's like gotten her way into a salon, into this like literary salon, and he pops in and he's like, she's actually a thief.
Yeah,
you should have let her in. And so she gets chased out, and she's like, for God's sake, why did you do that to me? Like, I just left them with you. They're enjoyable. They're fun. They're despicable, but they are fun.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So the question that was whirring around my brain, and I know my personal answer to this, but it's about, would you make this deal yourself, and do you think you'd be able to make it living under the curse's conditions? So for those of you who've forgotten, she makes the deal. Basically, she will be immortal, at least until she decides that she doesn't want to live anymore. So she doesn't age, doesn't die, but she can still feel everything. She still feels hunger and thirst and cold and pain, but things won't make an impression. Like if she cuts her hair, it'll grow straight back. If somebody stabs her, she'll feel it, but she'll heal instantly. But then also the important part, the bit that makes her invisible, is that people can talk to her, but the second that they turn away, they've forgotten her. So would you make that deal yourself to have the immortality and the chance to go wherever you want, or not? And do you think you could survive if you had made that deal?
I don't think I would make the deal because I'm too much of a chicken. But I do. I don't know. I don't want to. It's a weird way to word it. I really enjoy my own company, and I do like doing things on my own. Yeah. So especially when you've got like the whole world and so much time, then you could make it, doable. But the fact that, she can't rent a place, she doesn't have a mobile phone, she can't keep clothes, I couldn't be bothered with any of that. I was like, but I just want to go home and get into bed and be nice and cozy.
Yes. And the fact that she has to make all of these acquaintances and then has to kind of circuit round to see who's not there seems like a lot of faff to me.
Yeah. And then you know none of it's yours. It's not home. So as much as I do like my own company, I like my own company in the place that I call home, that I've made for myself. So actually, I don't think it would work very well for me.
I often judge whether or not I'm going to, if somebody invites me somewhere, I often judge it based on how quickly it is to get back home. And I will base where I stay, if I go on holiday somewhere, I'll base it on how quickly I can get from the things I want to do to the home base. Because I don't want it to take that long. I don't want to be taking like 3 buses to get back home. No. It's going to be wrapped up in one. So no, I also do not. I would not make this deal. For one thing, it would break my heart if my family didn't know who I was. Absolutely kill me. Like, can you imagine what would happen if like my niece didn't remember who I was?
No,
I'd be gutted.
Yeah, that would.
You know how I am.
Yeah, I do.
Like if she says no to like saying goodbye to me on the phone, I'm like, oh. So that part. I also am very aware that I don't make a very good first impression on people. So
oh no,
to do that constantly. And I know, like, one of the things Addie does is she kind of will go to somebody repeatedly because she knows that she can. And I do quite like that aspect of it, that you can just try again the next day. But I find first impressions really daunting, and I know that I don't make a very good one, and can either come off like a bit too strong or not enough. So no, that would be torture. And I also have no sense of direction. So if I was trying to like work my way around like a city, work out where to stay, I'd be no good at it. It'd be very bad.
You'd just spend your time just walking in circles.
That I will say, I do completely relate to the fact that she spends like the first 100 or so years of her curse in the same city. I remember seeing a bit of criticism about Addie, and I think there are definitely things that you can criticize it for in terms of like diversity. But one of the things I saw again and again was, she has the freedom to go wherever she wants. So why does she only go to Paris, Venice? I think she goes to London. She doesn't in the book, but she does go to England at some point.
Oh, she mentions it, yeah.
And then to America. Why is it so Western? And I was like, and reading it, I was like, I can completely understand why she would do that because of the familiarity. And she spends the first 100 years in one place because she's kind of scared to branch out and go somewhere else. And I so relate to that. That would be me. That would be absolutely me. I'd have to be like, I would actually have to get my little devil demon to push me out of the place that I was staying, because I'd be like,
this is fine.
This is what I like. I could relate to that very much.
I have also just realized there was something else. I hate talking to people I don't know. So, like, do you know that I know so many people that can just start a conversation with like strangers. My mum. Yeah. And I'm like, how? I don't know. And then she'll get their entire life story. And no, that's like, I dread that. So having to do that all the time, I know you'd get used to it, but still, no, thanks.
I think it would just be, I think it works in quite well in the book that she'll repeatedly go to people and then she'll get more of a sense of their personality the more she interacts. That is basically how I have to deal with people, is I'm slowly like chipping away. Like, I will make you tick. But no, not. How do people do that on a first go? I don't understand. You are magical beings. You can charm people in one meeting. Who are you?
Yeah.
But no, my mum is the same. She'll just be like, she'll be at the cash register and she's just chatting away to this person she's never met before, and I'm like, how do you do that? I can barely say hello and goodbye and thank you, goodbye, and I'm like, oh god, that was too much, wasn't it?
That's funny.
So no, children will come out of our shells and it will be a whole thing. Maybe that's the power that that mothers have.
I guess so.
I'm not going to have a child to find out.
No.
Okay, my next little point. We've done Luke and Henry. So something I'd say another point of criticism that I'd seen for a lot of people was that they didn't really like Addie as a character, and that she was very not like other girls. And I think Sylvia actually mentioned this in her video of why she DNF'd it, was that she was finding her too grating. And it was interesting, and I wanted to talk about this like not like other girls, this main character syndrome kind of thing, because for me, I feel like kind of the point of the book is that she does start out very much like that, and she does feel like the big fish in a small pond. And I think part of what the curse does is it's Luke kind of proving to her that she is not that special, and which she is, but she isn't, if that makes sense. And it's forcing her to see her own significance in like the grand scheme of life. But then when she's with Henry, she's like realizing that she is important. She's gotten to a point after 300 years where she feels so insignificant, and he brings out more of her confidence. I don't know.
No, that makes perfect sense. Because the one thing I can see why a lot of people maybe didn't like or don't like about it is that, especially at the beginning, she's incredibly shallow. Like, she hasn't had, like, she's got two parents who love her. I know her mum is a bit pushy, and like she's been able to get away with marrying these different people she didn't want to marry for ages. And now, you know, this guy that seems quite nice and has been married before, like what's the big deal? But she seems so like against it, and so just like, no, this isn't me, this isn't what I like do, no. But I do think after the deal is made, she doesn't whine about it, which I quite liked. Obviously, and it is horrible. It's a bit hard to explain. So she goes through, I think, especially when she gets to Paris, there's a lot of the time there at first is really horrible for her. And V.E. Schwab does a great job of showing, you know, this is what she wanted, but actually she needs to learn how to live. Like, before, she had this cushy life, and she hasn't actually experienced anything. So she kind of like falls down and has to experience what it's like to, you know, earn and live on the streets, and like, this, that, and the other.
Rock bottom for her.
Yeah. And without that, I don't think I could have continued on with the book either. I don't think, because she at some points is kind of shallow. But then I was surprised, because I think the bit where she gets to the stable is quite early on. And I realized I really liked her then, even though part of me was like, I feel like I shouldn't, but I do.
I think what kind of brought me round for her is it's only after she's cursed that there are a few times where she goes back to her little village. But I think this is actually when she's still kind of working out the curse, and she's going to different people in the village and trying to get them to remember her. And I think she sees one of her friends who she'd always kind of written off as, oh, she became a wife and a mother. She's just like, and this is the big thing with her, is that she doesn't want to be just another wife and mother and nothing else. But she sees her friend with her child, like getting her house together, and she sees that she's actually very content, and that she's actually very good at what she does, and she isn't just a wife and mother, that she is her own person. And it's not really dwelt upon, but I did feel like she'd kind of realized, oh, my friend's life is not worthless just because she's gone down a different path than I have. Feels very, very Little Women 2019. But I like the fact that she does kind of see that there is value to this life that she's really pushed away from. And I don't think it's explored as fully as it could be, but then the book would be a lot longer if it was.
Yeah.
She has to get very quickly to the city to work out what she does like.
And I think you could say also by the end, obviously, when she meets Henry, everyone else in Henry's life sees him as like you're just a bookseller, you just work in a bookshop, like you've
just
I know. And you know, you're not doing much with your life, and they're kind of judging him for that. But by that point in Addie's life, she's seen everything, and she doesn't really judge anyone. So
Yeah, this is the thing. I have never read her as being not like other girls, but I can totally see why other people have.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those kind of like character where if you grab upon it early on, you can keep on seeing it. And I think you can see it especially at the beginning with her. But I think if it was there, she does grow out of it, and that's why I liked it. But yeah, she's definitely strong-willed and independent, which is what I love about her.
Yeah.
And I think if she was really, really not like other girls, I wouldn't like her, because there are some characters who are like that. Controversially, I don't really like Jo March because I think she is like that. I do like her, but she's not my favorite of the March sisters.
No, watching the film, I felt that. Yeah. Like, yeah, watching the film, I think I really liked Jo when I read the book, but watching the film, I was just a bit like, you're really annoying.
I got very frustrated. Pushy. I got very frustrated with her, especially actually in the book, in the Good Wives section. I felt like she really regressed, and well, she just kind of stayed the same, whereas all of her three other sisters, well, no, Amy,
yeah, love Amy.
Really grows up and matures, to a point where she is much more mature than Jo is.
Yes.
And she really comes into her own, whereas Jo just kind of stagnates and stays the same. And that's what that's kind of what I measure things onto, I think. But no, I feel like Addie does kind of mature, and she realizes that just because other people's dreams are different doesn't make them less important.
Yeah, no, it's just because other people's dreams are different to yours. Oh yeah, it doesn't mean they're not important, is it?
Yeah.
Not, yeah, or whichever.
Like that.
Yeah.
Which is what I feel like.
Yeah.
Choice. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you have anything else?
No, it's just, yeah, I think it also boils down to what you kind of like as in a main character. If you don't like someone that starts off as being this kind of like, I would kind of call her shallow and like unexperienced kind of person, you have to stick with it with Addie LaRue. Whereas some people, I can see why they DNF it, or even towards the end, like you said, if they get it stuck in their head at the beginning, they won't be able to let that go. But that was the one thing that I did think, this is probably why the people who don't like it, this is why they probably don't like it. So I can see that.
But also I can see why right at the beginning you could absolutely love her, because she is this very bright, intelligent person who is so creative and just wants to move out of this small town, and she wants to make a difference. And I can see people really latching onto her early on. It's one of those ones where I get it either way.
But yeah, she's a big dreamer. Like she's not like looking at what's. Yeah, I do. I like big dreamers. So it's like, yes.
But also something I really liked about it is she also starts off the book. This is a complete tangent. She starts off the book illiterate. So she has to learn how to read through the course of the book, which I feel like in any other book, she would have been able to read already, and it would have been another way of her being not like other girls, to be like, the only person in town who can read. I'm a regular belle. But she has to learn. She's got all of this potential, and it's being held back by what is expected of her. And it's a long struggle to her actually learning how to. I think she says it takes like 50 years for her to feel comfortable, because she's so not used to it. And I like that. It's a little bit of the book, but I like it. It's like the book Thief. I like seeing a character learn to love reading.
Yeah. I can hear that.
Give me Harry Potter. Okay, so another thing that I picked up in the book is that there are a lot of allusions to music and literature, and especially literature that is very topical, very themed to the book. And I noticed the first time round, but I think it was we both got very excited when we saw Dorian Gray mentioned.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
So ones I picked up, there's Dorian Gray, The Odyssey is mentioned, which I guess you've got, I guess, this journey that she's got. The book that she steals from
Steals,
Henry is an ancient Greek Odyssey, and he's like, why the hell have you stolen that? You can't read it. She's like, the one language I can't read. There's Sisyphus, the myth of Sisyphus, so him pushing the rock every day, and then it rolls back down. Faust is brought up again and again, which makes sense because that a deal with the devil.
Woo.
I wonder where the inspiration came from. But something I actually noticed was Henry's surname is Strauss, so like the composer, and Joseph Strauss actually wrote a piece called Faust Quadrille, which is not a very famous one, but I wanted to look up if Strauss was important to, if Joseph Strauss had ever written anything, and he had. I was like, I see you, V. Schwab. I know what you've done. It's not a very famous piece either, so I think she's done a bit of research.
I appreciate that a lot.
So I'll have to pop that.
It's just reminded me of another scene that really not stood out to me, but that I really liked, was when that customer comes into the bookstore when it's that weird chapter that's from Henry's perspective, or some of the bits that are from Henry's perspective, which threw me, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I had heard about this book and I've forgotten the title, but it's red and it's got a flower on it.
Oh, yes. Oh, because I had a rant about this, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you who are not Shannon and did not get treated to my little rant about this. Okay, so in Henry's chapter, a woman comes in and she's like, I want to read a book. It's about life and history and and it's, what was it? It has a red rose on the cover. It's rose,
yeah.
Red and has a rose on the cover. And Henry picks up Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, gives it to her, and in his perspective, he's saying, oh, I realized instantly that this couldn't be the book because it's a poppy, not a rose. And I'm just there like,
it's me.
It's the Tudor rose. It is Wolf Hall. It is about the Tudors. It is the Tudor rose. It's not a real rose, but it is I understand why he got poppy from looking at it, but I do not believe that none of the editors would have picked up, no V.E. Schwab, that is a rose. It's not a poppy.
Is V.E. Schwab like friends with Hilary Mantel? Because unless it was like a little fun story that she'd heard, so she put it in just for like bants. Like,
yeah. Oh. I hope so, because otherwise this is the second time I've read a very hyped book and there's been a Tudor-related inaccuracy in it that has been like... I mean, it's not these authors' fault that I'm a very pedantic person. I just put on these things and then rant about it on the internet. People see. But yeah, that one, that just got me. And it always just takes me out for about 5 minutes and I have to rant about it and then I'm fine. I'm like, I love this book, back into the book. Yeah, that was the scene that stuck in my head, for not a good reason, but I still love this book. It's fine. So yeah, was there any other? Oh yeah, I also wrote, weirdly, the one thing that she doesn't allude to is Groundhog Day, and I'd have thought, of all things, she loves film, so why would she not?
Don't they go to see Groundhog Day?
I think there's a different film they went to see.
No, I swear it's a film about like running out of time or something.
Because Groundhog Days, they repeat the same day over and over again.
Yeah, I swear that's...
Is it in there?
I don't... It's going to take me forever to find it, but I'm determined to find it because I swear that's what they go to see.
I've seen a lot of people comparing it to Groundhog Day.
Is it early on?
But that's why I thought they hadn't actually mentioned it in the book, because I thought of all of the allusions that you could make, that would be a clear one.
Wait. It's quite early on. It's like one of the first things they do together, right? And this is before either of them know about.
I thought it was like a very old movie that she took him to see. Can you hear Snape's memories in the back? The final being great danger.
Is it just the two of them that go?
They go together, and there's a film, and he realizes very quickly that she's seen it before, and then is like, "No, we can't do this."
Oh yeah, because that's why they fall out. Because
I've
seen it before.
I thought it was like a 40s, 50s.
Yeah, no, I remember now. Sorry, but I swear it's mentioned still.
Yeah, it feels like one that would be, but I'm sure it hasn't come up, but I could be wrong. Somebody who has an encyclopedic knowledge of Addie LaRue.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are all of these like allusions, and I was like, well, what? And I guess it's, you know, like a nice parallel. But then I feel like the issue with alluding to other books too much would be that it becomes like derivative, or people would be comparing it in their heads. I think I like the allusions in there.
It's so much of a unique book. I don't think it can be compared to anything else. Because yes, there are aspects you could say that have probably been drawn from other books like Dorian Gray and like Faust and everything that you know we've already mentioned, or that she mentions in the book. But the whole package, and that's why it's such an amazing book, is that it's nothing like I've ever read before. And as much as I would say it's kind of similar to The Book Thief in some aspects, but it's also totally not. Yeah, that's why when I knew quite early on that it was going to be a 5-star read, and it was because if she pulls this off correctly, which she does, it can't not be, because it's just the whole concept, and it's just done so well. Yes, just so good.
I do agree. I think, you know, there are parallels that you can make, but it's not a copy paste of anything. So I think, you know, Faust comes up the most, and that's because it's Deal with a Devil. But it's not just, the story isn't just that. There's like the 300 years that go on after that. It's her learning to live with this curse, and also her relationship to the devil. Whereas I think in Faust, it's literally the beginning and the end.
I want to read it. I've wanted to read it for a really long time, because we were going to do it in school, in drama. And we never did, because I was into dark, and my teacher, because like I don't want to brag, but I was like the best person in our class, and I got the highest grade out of everyone. So when we had to do group work, people like flocked to me, and I had to like pick who got to be in our group and who didn't. So because one bit we made up ourselves completely from scratch, and then the second performed piece that we had to do had to be an already existing play. So because he knew that I wanted to do something, you know, a bit like difficult, he did mention Faust, and I was like, I would love to do that. I think that would be amazing. But I don't think he could get the scripts. So we did, I don't know if it's just called Verity, but she has got like a split personality disorder.
Right.
And we did that. It was also very dark, but we had different people playing the different parts of her personality. Yeah, that was really cool.
Rather than doing a James McAvoy and you playing them all.
Yes.
No, we did Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe in, I think, my first term of uni with that. And I haven't actually read it since, and I would really like to pick it up again, because I do have a copy somewhere. And I've not seen I don't know how you say his name, who just does straight to Faust. I think that's after Dr. Faustus.
I know, I get confused. Are they the same thing or are they different?
They're different. So I'm putting in the chat how I think other players' author is spelled. Goethe? So there's Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, and then just Faust by Goethe. Kieran would know. Kieran's like obsessed with Faust. So yeah, so I do want to read them at some point, especially since we've done Dorian Gray.
Yeah.
Not quite a deal, because we'd never see him actually make a deal, and we don't know if it's just magic or not.
So glad that we accidentally planned and read Dorian Gray and then Addie LaRue. It was perfect.
I didn't even plan that.
No, it was, I know, and it was, yeah.
Just like, I really would like to read Picture of Dorian Gray, and I knew I wanted to read Addie.
I pushed you with Dorian Gray because I really wanted to reread it. So I was like, please pick this one.
It was between that and Jane Eyre.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay, because I think they're doing a Bronte read-along, and the first book they're doing is Jane Eyre.
I know, I'm going to reread it as well.
Yeah.
So.
I think I am, even though I said that I've done a whole goals video where I've said that I'm not going to reread as many books this year. Like, I'm just going to casually reread all the books.
Which are massive.
Oh, thank you, Monique.
Oh,
I knew it was an older film. I can't remember which one it was, because I've not seen any Hitchcock.
I've seen
not even
Psycho. Yeah.
I refuse to, because I know if I do, then I will never be able to get a shower.
It's not scary.
It looks scary to me.
It is very interesting to see what he did with it, because people just think it's that part, but actually, so she dies really early on in the film, and then the rest is like, very clever, very, very clever.
I've just seen him. I've seen like clips of him discussing what makes suspense in film.
I know, because he obviously some of his first film, or the first film we did, I think was Rebecca, because he loved Du Maurier. So
yeah, it's so weird to think that they were alive at the same time. They feel like separate entities in my head. Oh, anyway, Hitchcock. Woo. Addie LaRue. I can't remember what the film was, but now we know it's Hitchcock's. Good.
Yeah.
Why is my thing not working? Oh, yeah.
I know the last discussion point, I think, was Invisible Women.
Invisible Women, yes. Basically, I was reading this and thinking a lot about, mainly I was thinking about The World's Wife by Caroline Duffy, and like this idea of the women behind these famous men, these famous successful men, where Addie is like a very literal interpretation of like the woman behind the artist.
Yeah.
And does it make... I've got Spinning Beach Ball of Death for my OneNote, and that makes me very sad. Ugh.
Oh no.
Yeah, basically these women who contribute and are not given their due, even though they're very influential on the men in their lives' work. So, sorry, laptop. It's like I think one of the most obvious ones is like, people like Colette, or Zelda Fitzgerald, like Colette, who wrote a lot of her husband's work, and he published it under his name until she then took it back, which was a film with Keira Knightley, which I really enjoyed. And I think F. Scott Fitzgerald published a lot of Zelda's work under his name as well. But then there are other ones that, like, I think Caroline Duffy really brings out that this idea of the reason that these men are able to do anything is because they've got wives looking after everything else. Or maybe they have the ideas, and I don't know what you think about what.
What's really interesting about that is obviously throughout it, Addie is happy with that, because she gets to leave her impression on the world, in a way. So she's not really sad about the fact that, her name isn't on it. But then towards the end, when she is able to write her name with Henry's help, and it becomes like a big thing. And then obviously at the end, she manages through Henry again, but it's got her name on it.
And he chooses not to have his name on there.
Is her name on it?
Her name it's called The Invisible Life of
yes.
LaRue, and Henry is asked if he wants his name on there, and he says no. He just wants her name to shine, which I'm like, oh, and that's why I like him. That's why I like him. Oh. Because he doesn't need it, and he knows that she does because she's never been able to make that impression. So he lets her have her moment, and I'm like, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, after this like culmination of her contributing to so many different people.
I mean, you could even like tie the Invisible Women into the thing that you said about the beginning, where she looks at the other women around her and is like, I don't want to be like that, without realizing actually the role they play is very important as well. And then as well, when like she goes to Paris and becomes like a prostitute, but then she's only properly seen when she's dressed as a man by another man who realizes she's actually a woman.
Yeah, and that's another thing that kind of like the coffee house is just entirely men that she goes to with Renaud, I think he's called Renaud, and he mentions the fact that women don't come here, and it kind of makes me think of, well, why are men able to just like in the middle of the day, in the middle of the evening, just go out to this coffee house and, you know, be these big intellectuals like talking philosophy to their fellow men? It's because they've got women at home doing everything else.
Yes.
So the fact that they're not there is like, it's the deafening silence that women are not there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. So it's not just in the art side of things; it's in those other aspects of the book as well. You just like kind of magnify a little bit, which is interesting because I'm glad that you brought that up as a discussion point, because again, I wouldn't have thought about that, because I don't think about these things when I'm reading books. I just read the book. And that's why I love these discussions, because then I start to realize things and I'm like, this is amazing.
I think it did definitely help that I had read it before, so I wasn't having to pick up plot as I went. I'm trying to do it at the moment for I'm trying to think of like discussion points for Leah Wife, which is what I'm reading at the moment, and I feel like it is coming so slowly because I am still like, what's gonna happen?
Is it written in verse?
It's not, no.
Oh, no. I don't know why. I thought it was for some weird reason.
Did you? I
don't know what it is, but I just heard
it was Voldemort killing Harry. Oh my god! You know what's going to kill me is if oh no, I can't say it. It's the laugh. That's going to kill me. I will actually die. Okay. What was I saying? Leah Wife. Yes, I'm reading that at the moment, and I'm trying to make like parallels because I quite like to do a book review on that. But like trying to wade your way through, is this a theme? Is that a theme? I don't know, because I've not read the whole book, so I don't know what the plot is. Whereas with this, it felt like a lot easier to like pull things out of because I knew what things were leading to.
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad that you did bring up also bringing it back to like the women in the town, because yeah, I think that is very true. It's all cyclical. It all jumps into each other.
And it just made me realize how amazing the book is and how pieced out and well written and how everything does like click. And I want to reread it because obviously the first time I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? Who is this? Where is this leading? No. So I've skipped past a lot of, I think, the juicy bits. So I want to reread it and get the juicy bits.
I can heartily recommend a reread.
I know that it won't take me long, even though it looks intimidating.
No, I think
in a reread I could devour that.
Yeah, I think I binged it like the first time that I read it, and this time round I read a bit of it at the beginning of the month, and then we did My Fair Lady, and then I wasn't listening to anything, and then picked up the audiobook again through, I think it was just before Christmas Eve that I finished it, and that was actually quite nice. I was able to put it down and then pick it back up again, and it'd be fine and not feel like I was out of it. And I think that's a sign of a good reread book. I have the same thing with The Mirror and the Light, where I can just pick it up whenever I'm feeling like it, and I know I'm good, and it will be like straight back in the world. And let's see if, okay, so this was not one of our points, but something that I think about a lot with this is that it's historical fiction, but for me it doesn't always feel historical. But I don't really mind that so much. I thought it would annoy me more, but it doesn't feel very like, here is the world. And I think that is, for me, I think it's because she's so not tied down to anything, and she's having to be so present minded that she can't really like sit and stew with things, or like take the world as anything other than the place that she needs to survive.
Yeah.
So a lot of things just kind of blow past her. And that makes sense to me, but I think I can understand why it would annoy other people.
I did find it difficult when I finished it, because my bookshelves are in genre. So, like, I've got a section for historical fiction, and part of me was like, it could go up there, but I wouldn't be happy putting it up there. And I think it's mainly because all of my other historical fiction are set around really specific points, whereas this one, because it's like flipped backwards and forwards and it's loads of different times, yeah, so I've just put it on my favorite shelf because that solves the problem.
Beautiful.
But I was also at the same time very glad that it did have that historical feel for me, because that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed it. So.
And I felt like it would also be very easy to overdo it, and that would annoy me. So I think like just generally knowing things that were going on in France in the 18th century helped. So like when we were getting closer and closer to revolution, I was
revolution,
like, oh, yeah, get out. And then I think the bits that people pick up a bit more on are like the 19th century and the World Wars.
Yeah.
So there's a bit where she's back in France and it's World War II, and you're just like, why the hell are you here?
Why are you there? Get out, yeah.
Because she does interact with some Nazi prison officers, doesn't she, at one point?
Oh yeah, she gets arrested, and then
he comes, and Luke comes and takes her out and brings her to America. And I'm just like, get out! What are you doing? And that's one of the moments where Addie where she's like, oh, I'm really stupid. I could have gotten out and I didn't, and I just stayed. Why did I just stay? So at least, consistency in her character. She's like, oh, I was too confident, I just stayed and I shouldn't have.
Another thing that I don't think I've talked about, that just thinking about it now, again, V.E. Schwab does really well, is that with it being set in different times and different areas, she pulls you into that world and that time very easily without too much world building. So like when it's set in France in like whatever time it's set, I was immediately drawn to what it would look like and what kind of clothes she would be wearing and things like that. Whereas normally with other books, I sometimes need a lot more world building for my mind to be able to do that. But V.E. Schwab did it very, very well and like simply.
Yes, that's what I think. Have you read How to Stop Time by Matt Haig?
No, but I want to.
Because that's one I do like it. And that is, he's not immortal. He has this like disorder, I don't know, where he ages very, very slowly, basically like 10 times slower than normal humans. And so he's been alive for about 500 years, about 400 years, but he only looks 40. So he's lived through he's lived through Shakespeare through to present day. I think he's born in the 1500s and it's true. And and there were times with that, even though I really enjoyed it, where I did think some of the like historical explanation was very kind of hitting you over the head. So it's like he's in the 1500s, 1600s, and he meets Shakespeare, and I was like, oh great, he meets Shakespeare, I love that. But then like in the 1920s, he meets F. Scott Fitzgerald and Zelda Fitzgerald, and I'm like, really?
Oh, so it's a bit obvious. Yeah, it's like you have to know
the important people. I'm like, did he have to though?
Yeah, like
whereas I feel like she doesn't name drop people too much. Like Voltaire walks in. Is it Voltaire who walks in? I'm sure it's Voltaire who walks in to the cafe, but to the coffee shop. But he's just kind of pointed out that he's there. It's not like, and then I met Voltaire.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's just kind of there, and she doesn't know who he is, because why would she? Because that's not important.
Yeah, and that's another thing I really liked as well, is that obviously in the modern day, she does talk about, or like in her head, or I've forgotten how it works, but she does talk about like obviously that she's lived through so many big things, but then in the moment when those big things are happening, obviously she doesn't know, because you wouldn't until after it's over, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, I lived through that, I forgot. But in the moment when it's happening, you're just like, what is going on? I need to like move because I'm about to be blown up. Like, what is happening?
It also, when I finished with it, so it finishes 2014, 2015. One of them. I know the main modern bit starts in 2014. I think it finishes I think it finishes.
I can check if you want me to.
Yes, please do. I don't have my book with me. When he's published his book, is it 2017?
It's 2014. Still.
Oh
no. London, England. Yeah, 2016.
16. So close. No, I got to a point where it's like, oh, it's a really good deal. A really good thing that she did the deal with Luke at the end as she did. Because can you imagine if she had this curse and she was living through COVID? What should she do? She can't interact with people, like especially 2020. She can't go into shops or anything because they're all shut.
Yeah, and she couldn't stay at home because she doesn't have a home.
No. Like, it was all planned. She knew. Luke knew.
That is wow.
Unless she was with Henry. But could not have been.
That's so weird.
What would she have done?
I don't know.
But I think it is a fun game to be like, oh, if you plopped her into this time, what would she do? Would she have survived? And actually, I think the fact that it starts in the 1800s. Like, I think I was slightly disappointed when I found out, oh, it starts in 1714. I wanted it to be earlier, but actually, in terms of how women could move around, it's actually a much better thing for her to be going through the 18th century, because it's still very uncommon for a woman to be walking around, but it grows to be more accepted as time goes on, a bit quicker than like if it was the 1500s, and that would not be okay. Just for logistics.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes more sense to me. Oh yes. So those are all of my things that I had. I don't know if you had anything else.
No, I think that's it. I think we've covered quite a lot of the juiciness.
And I managed to get through it without completely gushing about Luke and Henry. I did a little bit, not as much as I could have done. It's one of those things though. Everybody talks about like having like book crushes, and I don't get those very often. But when it does, it's like, oh, I love this character. They're so great. Let me talk about them. So I promise I'm not always like this.
I love that mine are all just the same person, basically. It all started with the Darkling, and anyone that's remotely similar, I'm just like, hello.
I think so I'd read it physically the first time and then audiobooked the reread. So hearing the voices in my head, I was just there like, okay. Oh, I'm a ridiculous human.
No, that is a weird thing to get used to. I tried to listen to the audiobook of Six of Crows, and I was like, no,
Not
no,
right.
this person doesn't sound like this, but no.
Oh,
And I gave up and
actually,
just reread it physically.
speaking of Harry Potter, I've had that with the Stephen Fry ones, because that's the one that I do listen to if I'm going to do the audiobooks. But his Remus Lupin is all wrong. He sounds like he's 80 years old.
No,
And
he's
he's
not.
very much like, Harry. And I'm like, he's like in his 30s. Tone it down. Like Dumbledore sounds younger than him, and it doesn't make sense. Do you get Wuthering Heights vibes? I think the romance somehow reminded me of Kathy and Heathcliff.
I hate Wuthering Heights, so no, I did not.
See, the thing with Wuthering Heights is I enjoyed it, but like they're awful.
Yeah, they are so horrible. There's nothing enjoyable about that.
I feel like there is more banter between Luke and Addie than Kathy and Heathcliff. I think Heathcliff is just brooding and awful.
Yeah.
And I don't really get Kathy as a character.
I hated her as well.
Read along will be good, because then I can really cement.
I'm not going anywhere near. Like, I had one of the really nice, the nice ones that are like the Jane Austen ones of Wuthering Heights.
The vintage ones?
Yeah.
The black and white ones.
And I think I even just gave it to the charity shop, because I was like, I don't care enough to even sell it. Like, no.
Oh, I like it, but it's not my favourite novel of the Brontes. I prefer Emily's poetry. But I did enjoy it. I think somebody had said to me, don't read it as a romance, read it as like twisted, awful people being awful. And that helped a lot, because I was reading it and just like, why would anybody romanticize this?
But I was just
good people.
Irritated the entire time. I was like, to me, like, I like morally grey characters, but they're just all awful. So I was like, I'm not getting any enjoyment out of this. No, thank you. So yeah.
So yeah, I personally wouldn't go Kathy Heathcliff. Kathy and Heathcliff. God, I can't talk. Because I think there's more humour to the relationships in this, I think. And I think there's a bit more, there is respect, but it's a very twisted kind of respect, which I don't get from Wuthering Heights, where it's very possessive. But I guess Luke is very possessive, so I get that.
Yes, yeah.
But, so I see some of it.
I mean, I can see where I can.
It's twisted.
Yes, it is.
And you
it's
don't
not
always know if it feels right.
Yeah, and that's what I was confused about, because obviously I wanted it to be a thing, and I was like, but I can't ship if it's going to be disappointing. I can't ship it. But he wasn't that disappointing, so it's fine.
Do you know, it just came into my head.
What?
It's me, it's Addie. Thank you, Monique, for giving me that in my head.
I love Kate Bush.
My mum doesn't like her, and I don't get it.
Yeah, my mum doesn't like her either. Again, mums, weird.
Our mothers should meet, clearly. They have a yeah. Oh, no, I enjoyed that. That was beautiful.
That's good.
Yeah. So are we wrapped up on Addie? I'm really sad that Karis couldn't come, but she had phone issues.
Yes.
But we'll be grilling her in the WhatsApp about opinions.
100%.
Look forward to that, Karis, if you're watching.
And our next one is Beloved, not Beloved, as I had been pronouncing it, by Toni Morrison, which we all... Oh, you're finished, but I think me and Karis are still reading.
On a roll, on a reading roll.
Yeah, you are on a reading roll. I've forgotten, is it me next, or is it Karis?
Yes, it'll be you, and then Karis, and then me, because we start birthday stuff.
Oh no, now I'm terrified, because I've just realised I'm going to have to come up with questions / discussion points about this book. But thankfully, I think it's probably one that's got some somewhere that I can steal.
Yes, it will absolutely.
So,
because it's classed as a classic on the Storygraph. I think it's good.
But there are lots of people currently reading it.
I've had a lot of, when I put it on I put my reading progress for this month on Insta stories, and I had multiple people being like, "Beloved!" It's like,
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
It's the same as the Instagram post I shared. I got a few comments to me like, "Oh, I'm reading it too," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So yes, I do think again that's going to be a very interesting one to discuss. We do not have the live show date for that yet, but you'll get it soon when we've organised ourselves.
We have to wrangle all three of us in, force us to commit to a time, but we do get there.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom. So yes, Beloved next. Toni Morrison. Hype, hype, hype. Wow. Can you tell I had a Galaxy cookie crumble bar, and the sugar has gone to my head.
I meant to have a coffee because I was so tired after finishing work today. But I ate dinner and that perked me up apparently. So
yeah,
no coffee needed.
Well, that was lovely, dear.
Yes. Thank you for hosting, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, lovely time. Yeah. See you next
month. Bye.